Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever you believe, wherever you are on your journey, come walk with us this hour. Let us walk together this hour. The call to worship this morning is by Rachel Naomi Ramin. The healing of our present woundedness may lie in recognizing and reclaiming the capacity we all have to heal each other, the enormous power in the simplest of human relationships, the strength of a touch, the blessing of forgiveness, the grace of someone else taking you just as you are and finding in you an unsuspected goodness.
Please join me in singing hymn 1017.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Arthur Lavoie, minister here at First Parish in Plymouth. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I invite you to join me in the words of our chalice lighting that are on your screen. Love is the spirit.
Love is the spirit.
Church, and service is
its law.
This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another.
I'm going to read a story today called Rosie Saves the World by Debbie Herman. Rosie was excited in Hebrew school. They were learning about TIKUN OLAM. It meant repairing the world by doing good deeds. Rosie was sure she could do good deeds, so she set out to help people in her neighborhood. She dusted off her wagon and she was on the sidewalk when her mother pulled into the driveway. Rosie, can you help me bring in the groceries? No, Mom, I can't. I'm going to save the world. Rosie went door to door collecting cans of food to donate to the food pantry. They gave her tuna, yams, baby carrots, and asparagus. After Rosie had collected enough to fill the cart, she went to the food bank. Oh, thoughtful, how thoughtful, they exclaimed as she pulled her wagon in. You are quite a superhero. Thank you, Rosie. Rosie's next project was Operation Tutor Tots. She had learned that it was good deeds to help people, so she was determined to help some little ones this time. As Rosie gathered her tutoring supplies, she passed her brother, who was busy at the kitchen table with a pencil. Can you help me write my letters? I keep messing up. Sorry, Si, can't stop to help you. I've got to go save the world and keep the tots learning their stuff. Later that week, Rosie got ready for Operation Sing with the Seniors. She had gotten her dad's ukulele out and was ready to head out the door when Dad said, Hey, Rosie, how about coming with me to visit Grandma? Next time, Rosie said, today I'm saving the world. Tomorrow I'll give Grandma a kiss. Rosie skipped out to the assisted living center where she played her ukulele and sang. She even took requests. Afterwards, she walked around and talked to all the residents. They told her she was a star. The next day, Rosie was in her room creating a Save the World spreadsheet. Her mom called in, Rosie, can you help me out and clean Leo's kitty litter? It's really smelly. I'll do it later, Mom. And she kept working on her spreadsheet. Then she added to her spreadsheet Operation Pamper Pets. And she went to a shelter and she took care of pets and she snuggled them and she fed them and she brushed them. As she was walking home, she heard crying coming from one of the neighbors' houses. It was a baby. She knocked on the door to make sure everything was okay. An exhausted-looking Mrs. Albert opened the door, bouncing baby Louis in her arms. I just can't get him to sleep, she said. And I have a deadline to meet at work. Say no more, said Rosie, and she scooped Louis up in her arms. She rocked him, she gave him a bottle, she even changed his diaper. When Louis was finally asleep, Rosie tidied up the living room. Mrs. Albert finished her work just in the nick of time. You are a lifesaver, said Mrs. Albert. I bet you're a huge help at home, aren't you? Rosie stopped for a minute. She thought of her mother with the grocery bags. She thought of her brother Simon trying to write his letters. She thought about father visiting grandmother. She thought about Leo and his stinky litter box. Well, I have to go, and she ran home. When she got home, she found Si coloring out on the sidewalk with chalk, and she helped him finish his big dragon. She found the kitty litter box and cleaned it out. She called her grandmother and said, It's been a while since we talked. How are you? She found her mother cleaning out her cookie jar collection, and she offered to help. Well, Mom looked at her and said, No, it's okay. You're trying to save the world. Rosie said, I am. But by doing my best helping project yet, I'm going to call it Operation Family Comes First. Rosie took the superhero cookie jar and started cleaning it and turned to her mother and said, "I can save the world tomorrow." I wonder how you can save the world. I wonder how you can help your family. I wonder if we remember that we can do both.
This reading is entitled Choose to Bless the World by Rebecca Parker. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or to curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting. That which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for the beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude, to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting.
Please join me in singing hymn 134.
Love
It is Saturday, February 8th, 2014, around 8 p.m. I am with two busloads of people, nearly 100 of us, and we walk into a Wendy's for dinner somewhere along Route 95 in Virginia. We haven't gotten much sleep in the last 24 hours and haven't had much to eat either, except for a couple of fast food stops and the snacks we carried on the buses. We are hungry, we are exhausted, and we are giddy. That weekend, we were rediscovering that doing our part to stand with those who are disenfranchised and heal the broken world can sometimes be a lot of fun. As anyone who's been standing out on Coles Hill these last several Saturdays, or anyone who's been in a demonstration or helped feed or care for someone in need, we often discover that using our gifts to bless the world benefits us as much as it does the people we are trying to help or the cause we are standing for. The trip has reminded us that being together with like-minded people helps us to know that we are not alone. This has been a grueling week for all of us, with a happy ending, I hope, that we all celebrate together, with good news in the presidential election announced yesterday. I don't know about you, but I was a bit despondent Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. In spite of what they told us, I was hoping for a quicker and more decisive result in the congressional and Senate races, as well as the presidential one. Once again this week, I am reminded that there will be no easy fixes to what ails us, no magic bullet. Even with Biden's win, there will be many years of contentious rancor. There is too much discord in our society, and we will need a long, protracted time of healing, of listening deeply to each other so that we can find the pathways forward. Those of us on the left have as much of a tendency to demand that our way is the only way, as we have seen these last years from people on the right. I was in a Zoom call this week with my UU clergy support group. One of my colleagues said that he had recently read that all evil in the world begins when we try to exert control over those who are different from us. It's the beginning of fascism, he said, when we face contradictions and try to exert our power to enforce some measure of sameness that can never be possible. Healing our society does not mean that we will all think alike, nor does it mean that we can force our views on others. It does mean that we will be respectful and understanding of each other's point of view and way of life. Healing needs to be based on covenant, relationship, and respectful connection, not on agreement of what is right. Healing is our theme for the month of November, and TIKUN OLAM is the title of our service this morning. And I want to thank Ken for sending me this quote from Shabbat.org. TIKUN is often translated as repair, but it can also mean improve, fix, or prepare. Olam in biblical Hebrew connotes all of time. In current times, it comes to mean the world. So TIKUN olam means to do something with the world that will not only fix any damage, but improve upon it as well. In an article by Howard Schwartz, he writes, for many modern Jews, the term TIKUN olam, or repairing the world, has become a code phrase synonymous with social and environmental action. It is linked to a call for healing the ills of the world. Indeed, TIKUN olam has become the defining purpose of much modern Jewish life. What many of those who use the term do not know is that the idea is rooted in the last great myth that was infused into Jewish tradition, a cosmological myth created in the 16th century by the great Jewish mystic, Rabbi Isaac Luria of Safed. He's also known as Ari. According to this myth, God's presence filled the whole universe at the beginning of time. But God had to make room for creation. So God pulled back and contracted so that the universe could exist. As the light of God pulled back, darkness was created. So God put the light into 10 vessels that were sent forth to bring light into darkness. But the vessels weren't strong enough to contain the light, and they shattered, sending shards of light everywhere, where they became hidden throughout the universe. According to the myth, Jews, I imagine all human beings, are called upon and were created to gather the sparks of light wherever they have fallen. And the broken vessels will be restored when all the holy sparks have once again been gathered. We have truly become a global community. One of the costs of this phenomenon is that we are more aware than ever of the ways this world and its people are broken, of all the shards of divine light that are scattered throughout the world. This myth stands in seeming contradiction to the Garden of Eden myth, in which the first human parents caused the brokenness of the world by their disobedience. The TIKUN olam myth tells us that the brokenness of the world occurred before the creation of human beings, with the shattering of the 10 vessels carrying the light. In this story, God is responsible for brokenness by not making the vessels strong enough to hold the light. The story reverses the traditional theology that many of us have inherited about sin and salvation. We have been taught that God created perfection, that human beings messed up, and that God will need to send a prophet or a redeemer to save us. The TIKUN olam story says that God messed up, and that it is up to human beings to save the world, to bless the world, to mend the world. And salvation can only come when human beings have accomplished the task of gathering the lost shards of light. We are called to be the bearers of healing and salvation, rather than carrying the legacy of sin. Think about that. If Western culture were built on the foundation of the TIKUN olam myth rather than the Garden of Eden myth, how differently might we have been raised? How differently might we see ourselves today? Rather than being raised to see ourselves as unholy and as sinful in need of redemption, we might have learned to see ourselves as the bringers of healing and wholeness to the world. Now, some of you might be wondering what happened to the story I started with and how I got to be part of 2 busloads of people in Virginia at a Wendy's on a cold February Saturday night. Over the last decade, North Carolina has been a state where several classes of human rights have been stripped away by the state legislature. Everything from reproductive rights to basic health care to LGBTQ rights, funding for social programs, they were all being decimated by a legislature that was created by gerrymandering districts. Severe restrictions were passed on voting rights as well. The Reverend William J. Barber, a Black Baptist minister and the head of the NAACP in North Carolina, had put together an impressive coalition of groups to address these multiple issues. He called on every progressive group in the state to work together rather than being siloed with their individual goals. Barber had gotten himself into some trouble even within the Black community for his support of marriage equality and other issues as part of this coalition. But his religious stance was that we all need to work together for the benefit of all. This coalition building, I think, is the way of the future. Clergy and people of faith would gather for a protest every Monday at the North Carolina State House. Several Unitarian Universalist clergy colleagues participated in these Moral Monday demonstrations, and many had gotten arrested multiple times. Then, in December 2013, the call went out from our UU colleagues in North Carolina. There would be a massive demonstration on February 8th, 2014, and we were all invited to show up. It reminded many of us of the call that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had sent out in 1965 after peaceful voting rights marchers were brutally attacked while trying to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge in a march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. Dozens of clergy, including many UU clergy, answered that call. It was now my turn. I called my friend Rob Hardings, who was then the minister at All Souls Church, our big UU congregation in Washington, D.C., and asked what his plans were. It turned out that his congregation had chartered a couple of buses. If I flew to DC that Friday, there was room for me on the bus. Then I could stay a couple of nights and visit with him, his husband Chris, and their son Nico. This, I thought, would be a great adventure, and it was. The buses left All Souls around 6 p.m. on Friday, drove to Raleigh, where we got a few hours sleep in the motel we'd rented. Then we were up again for the march on Saturday. Then back on the buses for the ride back to DC. The weather was cold and drizzly and downright gross. By all accounts, we should have been cranky and miserable. We were, in fact, having the time of our lives. There is some kind of bond, a spiritual energy, the presence of God, the presence of abundant love, call it what you will, that stirs among us when we work together for justice. Even in the midst of struggle and tragedy, when we put our faith into action, we have a chance to change the world and to build the beloved community that we long for. Now, I don't want to make this sound like too much of a kumbaya story. Doing the work to create a more just society is long, hard, grueling work. It is discouraging, much like this election season has been. And change, as we know, rarely happens as quickly as we would like. But when we are engaged in that work with like-minded companions and friends, those connections bless us in ways that we can't even imagine. And you know, it chokes me up every time I remember that march in Raleigh, North Carolina. And when I remember the gratitude of the people of North Carolina that were there. The UU clergy all wore our clergy collars and made signs saying where we were from. People on the streets were in awe. They were cheering, and many wept as we passed. They couldn't believe that clergy had arrived from so many different places in the dead of winter to support them when they were feeling so discouraged. We didn't change any laws in North Carolina that day, but we gave people there the message that they were not alone and that we had their backs. Rebecca Parker ended our reading this morning with the words, "None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting." We have seen a new vision of that possibility realized this week. Let us continue to stand together as we bring healing and wholeness to all that has been broken. Amen. And blessed be.
Let us join in singing hymn 121. We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a land
That is one of my all-time favorite hymns. Come build a land. Come build a land together. The land that we believe in, the land that is our dream for what the world should be. Come together, build a land where we bless the world, where we save what is holy, and we repair what has been broken. Come build that land. It is only together that we can do that. Now, today, tomorrow, and into this new era that we will be blessed with. Amen.